Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this last day session of this webinar, and we have a very eminent speaker today, Dr. S. Venkatmohan sir, who's working as Senior Principal Scientist at IICT Hyderabad since 1998. I consider it my privilege and a great honor to introduce Dr. S. Venkatmohan sir. Firstly, I would like to thank Sir for accepting our invitation and being a part of this webinar come FDP series. While talking about Sir's achievement, the list goes on, but I would like to introduce Sir. Sir has done his BTech Civil Engineering, MTech Environmental Engineering and doctoral research in engineering discipline from Sri Venkateshwara University, Tirupati. Sir is a visiting professor at Kyoto University since 2005 and fellow at Technical University of Munich, Germany during the period 2001-2002. Dr. Mohan's research majorly focuses to understand and respond to the human-induced environmental change with a multidisciplinary approach in the sustainable framework in the interface of environment and bioengineering. Sir's research specifically explored the potential of negatively valued waste as viable feedstock for harnessing clean energy and biomaterials by developing novel and sustainable technologies through Nexus approach. Dr. Venkatmohan sir's main research interests are in the areas of advanced waste remediation, acidogenesis, microbial electrogenesis, photosynthesis, CO2 biosequestration, circular bioeconomy, self-regenerative systems, and biorefinery. Dr. Mohan has authored more than 350 research articles, 60 chapters for books, edited 4 books and has 9 patents. Sir's publications have more than 17,700 citations with an H index of 74. Sir has guided 27 PhDs, 2 MPhils and more than 100 MTech, BTech, MSc students. Sir has successfully demonstrated the production of biohydrogen with simultaneous waste remediation at pilot scale and established a first of its kind waste biorefinery platform. Well, Sir is a recipient of the coveted Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize for the year 2014 in Engineering Sciences from the Government of India. Sir has also received several awards and honors, which include DBT Tata Innovation Fellow 2018 by Department of Biotechnology, Vasvik Award for the year 2018 in the category of Environmental Science and Technology. Well, the list goes on. So it's purely a great opportunity, dear participants, for us to listen to this eminent personality. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation. It's indeed a great privilege and honor to listen to you today, sir. Thank you, and I request you to begin the session, sir.
Thank you very much for nice introduction, and I would like to thank CBIT, Dr. Rajasri, Dr. Nagendra for giving me this opportunity to share my views on biorefineries today with you. It is my pleasure and honor to associate with this program. And today I would like to speak on biorefineries specific to waste valorization towards chemicals and fuels by closing loop approach, by considering the circular economy based sustainable strategies. So the basic scope of this presentation, I would like to give a brief introduction why we have to go for circular economy, particularly circular bioeconomy, which is very pertinent with respect to resource recovery of biomass and bio-waste towards fossil resource depletion in the context of fossil resource depletion. And I would like to briefly extend my presentation after introducing the biorefineries and circular economy towards some of the emerging technologies that can be used for biofuel and biomaterial production. So I'm from Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. We used to work on advanced wastewater treatment methods, very specific to resource recovery is a major scope. We try to use biomass and biowaste as major feedstock and try to convert it into hydrogen other bioplastics and other materials using acidogenesis process, bioelectrogenesis, photosynthesis, and bioneoxygenesis. Now, we try to integrate these processes in a closed loop and try to study the sustainability of these processes towards production of value-added products with reference to energy and materials. So first, I would like to speak a little bit on energy spectrum. Right now, particularly after industrialization, that is after 1930, we are mostly depending on fossils for our energy requirements. The exponential increase in coal, oil, and gas was specifically observed since industrialization, which was at peak right now. But with this present consumption pattern, the finite resources of these fossils will not be available after 2050. So along with that, there is again an issue with global warming because emissions released because of the combustion of these fuels. So there is a need to search for alternative feedstock, particularly with respect to energy. So when we look into the energy spectrum in Indian context, we have about 12% of renewables. Again, when we split these renewables into different renewable energy sources, mostly is coming from wind, about 67%, but 12% from biomass along with small hydro, and very little, less than 1% from waste to power. But India has a very good potential, particularly with respect to Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. There is about 22.5 gigawatts potential with respect to biofuel for power production. But right now we are only using about 3.6 gigawatts, which is about 30%, less than 20% of what is available. So India has huge potential. Just to look into the world energy spectrum is also almost 16% from renewables, and with other energy spectrums, other energy composition that varies with the country's policy as well as the resources available, particularly with that country. So not only energy, I would like to say that all the materials right now which we are using, either chemicals or textiles or other materials which is being produced, again is coming from fossil based feedstock, particularly from petroleum, natural gas. The blue and red lines you can see everywhere moving to all kinds of materials. So I would like to say that either for energy or for materials, we are depending on fossil based resources which are very finite. The exponential growth at which right now we are facing, particularly after industrialization and the rapid population growth and urbanization, will not sustain the finite resources, because we have to search for other resources or we have to judicially use the materials. So here I would like to get one more concept on urban metabolism. So urban areas, particularly cities, are major source for GDP. About 80% of GDP in the global context is from cities activities, and also 75% of material consumption, global material consumption, is from cities. So it needs a lot of input materials, particularly the resources to be extracted, transported from the external environment of urban space to the urban space, and as raw material, semi-finished products or finished products, which will be utilized to certain extent, and something will be stocked and a little bit recycled, and mostly go for landfills. Going to landfills means we are wasting the materials, even though it has a lot of potential. Basically, when we look into the materials type based classification, we can do with the technical and biological classification, where technically material will consist of metals, plastics, glass, construction materials, and that will go as a technical waste if we are not using it for using or making into stocks, and that can be recycled, reused, refurbished. And apart from technical, we have biological material which accounts for agriculture waste, food waste, wood, fiber, dairy and livestock, which accounts for emissions and all waste, and which also contain huge amount of resources in the form of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium and oxygen, along with inherent energy, which is right now going mostly for landfills or released into urban environment. So here, particularly with respect to biotechnology perspective, we have significant scope here to loop these back into the system to reuse. So as far as the urban systems are considered, with respect to its metabolism, when we take input material into human system, and we will evaluate the output based on the metabolism activities. Similarly, when we look the cities with respect to its metabolism, it's based on input material and using in the city itself and throwing it as a waste. There is lot of disruptive material flow, and most of the loops are open, and there is huge metabolic disaster. So because of that, lot of resource wastage is happening, and lot of environmental stress in city itself to the external global environment. So these are the critical issues with respect to resources. We have to focus more on urban environment in the coming days. So here I would like to say that what we are practicing till today for past 200 years, it's a linear economy. We can also call it as cradle to grave model, extractive industrial model, where we take material from mother earth, may use it and then dispose of it. So even though it has value, according to an estimate, European Union, 15 tons of resource will be used per capita per year. Among them, 5 tons will go as waste, and among the 5 tons, 60% will go to landfill without reusing it, which still has a lot of value. So all these linear model is because of increase in population, increase in urbanization, increase in income of the persons, per capita income gain throughout the globe, and because of that, huge material consumption and energy consumption, industrialization. So this is leading to a lot of pollution, global warming, health impacts, economic overshoot, and waste generation. So we have to move from linear model to sustainable models in order to sustain our life. So here I would like to say we have to change. There is need to change, and change is inevitable in order to sustain sustainability to the global community in coming days. I would like to get some of the few points which will tell the urgency, and based on the material consumption, domestic material consumption. At present, at global context, it is about 40 billion tons per year as per 2010 records, which accounts for 5 to 27 tons per person per year when it goes to linear model. The 5 to 27 variation is depends on the country and its metabolic activity with respect to material usage. So this will increase by to 90 to 180 billion tons per year by 2050, according to an estimate, and accounts for 18 to 17 tons per person per year. So the wide variation given between 90 to 180, that is because we are going with the sustainable practices, then we will get a lower figure. But if we are going with the same linear model, it will account to 180 billion tons per year. So by 2050, there will be 25%, almost 25% increment in global population. Right now it is 7.8 billion, which will reach 10 billions by 2050. India contributes about 18% of the global population. So if we continue to live like this and produce like today, by 2050, we will need 3 times more resources, and lot of stress on finite resource, and 50% of more fuel, 70% of more food, feed and fiber, along with 50% of more water. And along with this, 70% people will live in urban space. So specifically in urban context, when we look into the increment of population, 70 to 65, 65 to 70% population will inhabit cities by 2050. And because of that, 75% of natural resource consumption will happen in urban space, and 70% of global carbon emission is from urban activities, and 50% of global waste production accounts for activities in urban space. So you can look into the spectrum of activities, and as well as other future waste carbon emissions, resource consumption, which mostly happens in urban space in coming days. So if we are properly accounting the material usage, waste management and carbon emissions in urban space, we can equally contribute to sustainable living around the globe. So in future, there will be significant context in with respect to research specific to urban areas to go with sustainability. So for going for sustainable approaches, one of the strategy is moving from linear to circular economy. As you know, linear model accounts for take, make and dispose as a major thing, but circular economy will have a significant potential to reuse the material in a sustainable way. The raw material which we take from it, will be produced to some product, and waste generated from that process will be used for another material. So waste from one process will become a feedstock to other process. So likewise, we can close the loop. The wastage of material will be very less. So this will make sustainability in terms of reducing the waste, and apart from that, reusing the material with resource efficiency. So the environment stress on both sides will be less. So similar circular mode practices or circularity will be the one of the sustainable strategy to adopt by the global community in order to live in a pristine environment, global, as to get back the resilience also. Right now, what we have disturbed, to get back the resilience, we have to go with a sustainable strategies. And circular economy will account for a sustainable strategy, particularly with respect to biotechnology fraternity and ourselves. We are doing we are using biological approaches to convert biogenic material, not the technical material. In some cases we also use technical material which accounts in waste resources like wastewater or sludge. So we try to use biological routes and convert carbon and nutrient into products which function of fuel as well as materials. So that I will briefly explain with respect to some of the strategies which right now using. So before going into deep process, I would like to tell here that waste is one of the important material which is originating from the anthropic activities in urban space. So we can account for four kinds of waste, basically municipal solid waste and municipal solid waste, which accounts for about 62 million tons per year, and that has huge amount of energy, inherent energy. And the most advantage with the Indian waste, global waste, municipal solid waste is it contain more than 50% of biodegradable portion that is very amenable for biological process to recirculate into the loops. So apart from that, we have huge amount of sea-waste, 30 billion liters generated per year, per day, sorry, and it accounts for 240 megawatts, and also it has huge potential of resource in the form of nitrogen and phosphorus, which can be recycled. And along with that, we have huge amount of fecal sludge and industrial waste, which also accounts for good carbon and nutrients that can be recovered. So when we have a wastewater, we have to go for treatment. That everybody know that we have such effluent treatment plants or sewage treatment plants, and the major component unit operation in this is biological process because of its sustainability. When we have a biological process, there will be basically two micro environment or metabolic functions, aerobic and anaerobic. When we go for aerobic process, particularly with respect to activated sludge process, it will use the aerobic bacteria and in presence of oxygen convert carbon and nutrients into CO2, H2O, new cells. So it's an energy intensive process, and we will not get any useful material from this apart from reducing the carbon load, mostly going towards sludge as well as CO2. But alternatively, anaerobic process is a reducing process and energy giving process, particularly when we refer to methanogenesis, which is a matured process and existing for almost more than 100 years in the form of Kober gas and anaerobic digesters, which can convert carbon into methane. However, methane, right now people are considering it as a greenhouse gas, which has 20 times more potential greenhouse gas potential than the CO2. So alternatively, biotechnologists are looking towards alternative methods by retweeting the anaerobic process towards production of hydrogen, which is a relatively clean fuel, or electricity using microbial fuel cell, or bioplastics, or solventogenesis. I listed a few, but there are many existing. If you are altering the biocatalyst from bacteria to microalgae by mixotrophic mode of cultivation, by using waste in the form of organic or inorganic, we can again convert into biomass, which can be used for multiple purpose. When we are looking with the solid waste, basically right now solid waste mostly is going for land filling, little bit for composting, a little bit for incineration to recover heat. But there is significant scope to go for biological and thermochemical routes to convert huge amount of solid waste into chemicals as well as energy. So by this way, we can reduce greenhouse emissions significantly, and we can increase the energy and cost recovery. So it will be sustainable if you adopt resource recovery as a major aspect in solid waste management. So just to list out, I try to put all the waste from domestic industrial solid waste and CO2 from gaseous waste. We can use this as a feedstock, and with different biological process, we can convert into products that has fuel and material function, and with the different applications apart from waste remediation. So there is huge scope, but still optimization is required in a proper formatting. So just to conclude the introduction, I would like to say that transforming waste and its ingredients into a usable form is the essence of sustainable waste management. And earlier wastewater treatment plants are different, as well as energy generation is completely different. But at present, the wastewater treatment plants will become biofactories in some places around the globe. Now treatment plant name is being changed with resource recovery centers, and they will try to treat the wastewater at the same time produce energy as well as materials. So they will have all sustainable advantage. So we can say that waste is not a waste in future, waste is a resource. So to go with a resource, to use it as a resource, we need some kind of biological process to sustainably convert into fuels. So I'm very much interested in aerobic process because it's very versatile. It is like a biofactory. By tweaking the metabolic activity, we can produce any kind of material. But conventionally, with suppose we take glucose as a major carbon source from waste, it will be directly, it can go for methane production conventionally, or by treating the metabolic activity, we can produce lactic acid, lipids, or plastics, or hydrogen, or fatty acids, or ethanol. So there is a spectrum of scope to particularly with respect to anaerobic microbiome. And I would like to say that the anaerobic process will be the primary process in the biorefinery format, so that it can reduce the complexity of wastewater to be amenable for next biological routes to maximize the resource recovery. So coming to the context of anaerobic process, we at ISCT are working since 2005 on biohydrogen production, particularly using waste. Right now, hydrogen is being produced again from fossils. Hydrogen is a very clean energy and has high energy conversion. It will not generate any greenhouse gas and combustion. And everybody know about the futuristic hydrogen economy, which will be replacing the present energy things. So in ISCT, we started from a lab scale from 2005, and we came with the pilot plant near at end of 2016 with MNRE funding. And then we try to integrate waste biorefinery facility in order to maximize the resource recovery. So when we look into the metabolic pathway of hydrogen production, when we take waste, there will be three routes: hydrolysis, esterogenesis, esterogenesis. At the end of esterogenesis, we will get hydrogen and CO2. Conventionally, with methanogenesis, the fourth step methanogenesis, hydrogen, CO2, and acetic acid will convert into methane. So our success to produce hydrogen as a terminal product, we have to suppress the methanogenic activity so that hydrogen should form as a main final terminal product. So we try to work on that strategies, and we try to use wastewater and got good hydrogen production. Again, depends on the wastewater composition and biodegradability with reasonably good CO2 removal efficiency. There are many challenges we try to address before going into the pilot scale. Well, the major thing is coexisting of methanogenic bacteria and feedback inhibition, particularly because of formation of fatty acids. And again, there is an issue with composition of wastewater and acid effluents, which I will little bit discuss in coming slides. And economics also I would like to discuss at the end of the process description, and as well as purification, storage, and transport is also major challenge, but that is not coming in our domain, but it will go for material science and chemical engineers. So our major success came from developing a pre-treatment strategy to physically enrich estrogenic bacteria. So we try to use classical microbial technique, where by creating shock loads, the spore forming bacteria, that is estrogenic bacteria, can go into spores. but methanogenic bacteria cannot survive in shock loads. So that will kill the methanogenic bacteria. So that after a certain period of reactivation, the spore forming bacteria again reactivate and produce hydrogen as the terminal product. And there is no methane, hydrogen will be the final products. With that, we tried various methods, and to study its applicability for long-term operation, we also extended in different reactors, different treatment strategies for almost 1 year, and tried to evaluate the bacterial profile, microbial diversity, and specifically this untreated inoculum. When we treated with different strategies, we observed enrichment of firmicutes, which has hydrogen producing bacteria, in almost all methods with less diversity. But the inoculum, the parent inoculum has a good amount of diversity. That is why we are getting less hydrogen production in that case. So these are the bioreactors which we have used in laboratory during starting to optimizing state. And this is the PN diagram of a pilot plant. This is a pilot plant constructed in IICT and operated with different unit operations that can regulate the metabolic activity, selectively enrich estrogenic bacteria, and control the methanogenic growth during operation, as well as gas collection system and safety systems. This system can produce about 50,000 liters of hydrogen per day with municipal wastewater and food waste. So any process to make it sustainability, any process, any fermentation process, now people are looking to study its sustainability using life cycle analysis. Most of you know about life cycle analysis. Because without life cycle analysis, in future process cannot go for next step. So we try to address the life cycle sustainability by comparing with three of the standard methods which are right now available for hydrogen production, and the major feedstock for these processes again natural gas, and compared with hydrogen, IICT hydrogen technology, we choose waste as a feedstock. So this strategy will give impact with respect to different things like carcinogenic, respiratory, ozone layer, aquatic ecotoxicity. So to make it into simpler form, I try to put in four of the damage categories: human health, ecosystem quality, climate change, and resources. The green represent the hydrogen, biohydrogen production process thing, and other are the other conventional process where human health talks. Human health, with respect to human health, the hydrogen production process has less impact than the other process. Similarly, climate change, because not using any material except waste, it is a negative side as compared to other process which is a positive side. And similarly, there is no resources using in this process except for redox control. So it's also showing no feedstock, so negative, unlike other process. So ecosystem quality is relatively good compared to other process with respect to environmental discharges. So the hydrogen production process, because of its usage of feedstock from waste, has all sustainable features, and because of that, this process was selected for Green Chemistry Award by Department of Science and Technology as among the 12 principles proposed by Green Chemistry Consortium. It is almost compiling with 10 of the principles. So we can say it's a sustainable process as of now, and still there is improvement we can make with respect to resource recovery, which I will discuss in the next slides. So any process, when we are trying to look into scaling up, economics is the major issue. So if it is economically working out, then it will be good. Otherwise, it will have a lot of complications to go for commercial scale. So when we calculate the hydrogen production, hydrogen cost with respect to 1 kg, it is coming about 130 to 150 rupees per kg. So as like in commercial grade hydrogen, in market is available between 80 to 120 rupees, depends on the place, and which is coming from fossils. So there is a difference. The hydrogen production has from biohydrogen process has a little bit on higher side. So we have to reduce the cost in order to make it commercially viable. So for that, there are two strategies. One is the calculations we have made is with respect to pilot scale, 10 meter cube capacity. And the second one is we can valorize the streams, which is having a huge potential of organics coming from hydrogen reactor, so that will give value to the process, so that overall economics can be increased as well as sustainability, because we are using all resources here. So integrated strategy, keeping hydrogen as the primary process, and outlet of hydrogen we can send it for any of the secondary biological process, either producing hydrogen in microbial electric cell, or biomethane from anaerobic process, or anoxic process for bioplastic production, or for organic farming, or with microalgae for biodiesel production, or microbial for electricity production, and photofermentation. By this way, we are able to produce two forms of energy, or one form of energy and one form of material, along with maximizing resource recovery. So here we observe two of the process has quite interesting applications right now, particularly with respect to methane, a combination of hydrogen and methane. 10 to 20% of common addition of hydrogen to methane, it will be very much similar to natural gas, and the existing infrastructure to take the gas and to convert it into energy, transportation, everything will be used. But if you want to use hydrogen as a fuel, still it needs a lot of infrastructure, particularly with respect to engine modification and storage and other things. So right now, with this, with supplementation of 10 to 20% of hydrogen, we can increase the efficiency of engine, we can reduce the emissions, and we can increase the engine life also. So this is one thing which can be directly applied right now. And the second thing is bioplastic production. By integrating with anoxic bacteria at the terminal point, we can convert volatile fatty acids into polyhydroxyalkylate, a kind of biopolymer, which has many applications, particularly as a material in medical applications, as well as drug delivery material, as well as it can also be used as a bioplastics. This is also very good strategy. And third one, the application of the waste the outlet from hydrogen reactor has a good amount of acid content, so we can use that with 10% of supplementation to organic farming kind of activities, so that the phosphate solubility will get increased, the phosphate availability to roots get increased. And we have done it for almost 6 months in our laboratory, where we observed good growth in bottle gourd when we supplement with 10% of waste to the farming activity. So this is also a good application. And another thing, apart from hydrogen, we can also produce fatty acids, the chemicals, from wastewater directly. 1 kg of COD, we can produce about 0.62 kg of volatile fatty acids, or in the form of acetic acid, or 0.41 kg of EFA in butyric acid pathway, along with hydrogen. So we also focused on this when we are trying to increase the certain fatty acid production. Particularly, we are also getting incremental increase in hydrogen relative to the fatty acid production. So here hydrogen became a secondary product, but these fatty acids, particularly acetic acid, butyric and propionic acid, are platform chemicals, which right now is being produced by fossils, but has huge application for many purpose. So we are trying to look into enhancing fatty acid production for a DBT project. So likewise, I would like to say acetogenic has a huge potential, either primary product production or secondary, or in integrated biorefinery. So this acetogenesis, or I would like to say anaerobic bacteria, has a significant role to play in circular economy as well as in biorefinery format. Coming to the second process, which is microbial electrochemical technology, which is popularly called as microbial fuel cell. We will use same bacteria and same wastewater in a defined fuel cell of setup, two-chambered, separated by proton exchange membrane, and have anode and cathode with circuit connected through a resistance. Anaerobic metabolism will produce proton and electrons, and proton will pass through proton exchange membrane to cathode chamber. Electron through anode will pass through circuit and goes along with resistance to cathode chamber. In presence of oxygen there, proton and electron will convert into water. Because of that, there will be cell EMFs, which is nothing but electricity. So 1 mole of glucose, we can produce about 24 protons, 24 electrons, and which accounts for 1 kg of CO2 removal 170 watts. Right now we are only getting 25% of a theoretical yield. But during these 15 years, parallelly we started with hydrogen production, the MFC also. During these 15 years, we observed there are significant scope with respect to microbial fuel cell application, and we call it as microbial electrochemical system, a platform technology, versatile technology, and emerging technology which have many applications. As we can see, MFC is for power generation, and it has a good amount of treatment efficiency by electrochemical treatment, specifically IACC developing this technology, IACT, and by electrochemical system which can take CO2 and produce chemicals or any waste like MEC electric cell. We can produce hydrogen and microbial desalination, clean water by removing salts. It can take any kind of wastewater including CO2 or saline water and produce power or clean water or other bio-based products. So it has huge potential, I would like to say, and will play a major role in coming days, particularly in with respect to bio-based economy. So these are some of the fuel cells which we have tried to optimize, and this is the stacked cell and the fuel cell integration to plants which increase the productivity as well as treatment efficiency. And there are a lot of challenges, particularly with respect to the bioelectricity production, and we try to resolve some of the things. These are some of the optimized conditions, but we are able to get 30% of resource efficiency, resource conversion efficiency, but still there is room for improvement, but it requires interdisciplinary approach with respect to the materials as well as electrochemistry aspects. So with respect to wastewater treatment, when we use MFC as bioelectrochemical treatment, we get a very good results compared to anaerobic treatment. When we use pharmaceutical wastewater with low biodegradable, you can see all green lines representing BET compared to blue ANT, significant removal efficiency in all the parameters. Particularly for TDS, there is increment in 40% of removal efficiency, which we cannot get in conventional biological process, and also very good toxicity removal and color removal. Similarly, we applied to complex petroleum sludge, which we got very good results, and contaminated soil, very good results we observed with respect to removal efficiency of polyaromatic hydrocarbons, dry wastewater treatment, and saline water, as well as recovery of some valuable metals such as selenium at cathode chamber. So there are huge potential, and briefly I will go to BES, bioelectrochemical system, where we can use it as a pre-treatment step before going to the main fermentation process, either for ethanol production or for VFA production. The waste will be initially reduced its complexity so that it will be more amenable in secondary process, so that it can produce more of the product which we are anticipated. We applied to hydrogen production, got a very good incremental increase in efficiency. And similarly, we applied for municipal wastewater to convert initially into reducible sugars and then to various bio-based product. And we also used it for sewage sludge and got very good result apart from steroid production. Steroid is nothing but a nutrient in the form of phosphate. And we can also increase the upcoming technology right now. By little treating of anaerobic fermentation process, we can increase the rate of fermentation, particularly called as electrofermentation. So we can increase the rate, we can regulate the metabolic activity towards the product which we are anticipated. This is very upcoming and emerging area. We are trying to use this to increase the volatile fatty acid production as well as succinic acid production in our laboratory. So another last application, it can also take CO2, particularly in cathode chamber when we are enriching with homoostogenic bacteria. The electrons will flow from anode chamber from anaerobic bacteria. So in presence of protons and electrons and homoostogenic bacteria, CO2 will be converted into volatile fatty acids. This is a very emerging area, particularly with respect to Europe. In India also, IOCL is collaborating with Lanzotech to put a big plant to reuse the emissions from their plants. So we are trying to optimize the process towards enhancing the productivity of volatile fatty acids and getting a reasonably good incremental increase. So I am very sorry for that. Bioelectrofermentation also has huge scopes in bio-based economy, and there are multiple products we can produce with respect to its oxidation and reduction potential. The last process I will briefly tell about photosynthesis process. It's a photosynthetic machinery. Our life on Earth is depends on photosynthesis, and photosynthesis activity in the form of bacteria, algae, and plants take my sunlight and convert CO2 into value added products, which includes our food also. So we are trying to use algae and trying to go with mixotrophic mode of cultivation to convert carbon from in the gaseous form as well as organic and inorganic form, and to make biomass and some value added products, particularly with respect to proteins, biodiesel, biofertilizer, as well as edible oils. So these are the some of the reactors which we are using. This raceway pond with 3000 liter capacity, two numbers are there. So I will skip because of lack of time. So for coming to the final thing, the title of my presentation is on refinery. I would say it more precisely, waste refinery, because we are using waste as a major source for this biorefinery. And why we will call it as refineries? Normally petrol refineries take the crude and try to convert into different products in their refinery unit operation. Likewise, we'll take waste as a feedstock, and with biological process we'll try to refine it to different products. So that's why the name waste refinery was given to this. And the closed loop approach to maximize the resource efficiency, we are trying to use the closed loop approach. So any biological process cannot consume the complete carbon or nutrients. It will have some kind of feedback inhibitions or certain kind of metabolic disadvantage. So integrating 2 or 3 or 4 biological process, we can judicially use their functional activity towards maximizing the resource extension. So in this mode in ICT, we try to develop a biorefinery model, almost world first biorefinery model, by using waste and wastewater. I would like to explain this briefly. Like wastewater directly go to the first unit operation, but it's a solid waste, needs little bit pre-treatment and go for first a microbial fuel cell, where the complex molecules get simplified and we will get electricity. So then that will the outlet from this will go to secondary process, acidogenesis, which produce hydrogen and remove about 70% of carbon here. This about 15 to 20%. So the outlet from this residual carbon and nutrients go for third process and use any of these, including algal cultivation for biodiesel, MFC for bioelectricity, or bacterial anoxic process for bioplastics, or like that. So 90 to 95% carbon will be removed. Then tertiary, with plants we can remove other nutrients and reuse it in the process in a circular loop, or we can send it for garden. This kind of closing loop approach, 3 products with wastewater with maximizing recovery will address the sustainability and circular economy. This is the pilot plant, 10 meter cube pilot plant in ICT, integrated with hydrogen production process, closed view of different unit operations. So likewise, we are also trying to use municipal waste and convert into renewable sugars and try to use it in chemical synthetic routes, so that the whole process of chemical synthesis can be sustainable. When we consider using renewable feedstock, then overall sustainability of the process will increase when we look into the life cycle analysis. And recently we are working on a project by using biogas from sugarcane industry to convert into some chemicals in a biorefinery approach. So we can also develop a model with sewage, which has good amount of nutrients in a circular loop model, which is coming up in a big way throughout the global context in order to recover the resources and not to pollute the environment. And we are also trying to look into developing self-sustainable models, very much similar to one which is going on man-made mission projects, like where they cannot carry all the materials through Mars mission or so. They have to develop a circular mode systems among the space shuttle itself to produce their food. They treat their wastewater in a circular loop. In this model, we are using photosynthesis, a primary process, without any input except energy and CO2 and little bit of waste, trying to cultivate the microalgae and try to produce different products. This kind of looping will have a lot of advantage in future to develop sustainable models. And also we tried with Ajolla as a major photosynthetic organism and try to develop a sustainable model. So likewise, many models we can develop with CO2 or many things. But I would like to, at the end, I would like to show this slide. The first slide which I have shown initially, the same materials can be produced by using biomass and bio-waste with biological process. So the idea is the biorefinery idea or circular economy idea. If you are trying to replace 10 to 15% or 20% of the feedstock by producing these materials and supplement the platform of products, so we can reduce the environmental emissions by reducing the waste, and we can reduce the load or on the fossil reserves, so that we can keep this material for some more time. So this kind of approach will have multiple advantages with respect to economy, with respect to environment, with respect to the resource recovery thing. So that is why people right now are looking for bioeconomy, circular economy. It also has a lot of advantages apart from environment. It can create a lot of jobs. It can create green technologies and also support sustainable development goals, majority of sustainable development goals among the 17. So I would like to conclude that these process, which I have told, circular economy needs a interdisciplinary approach. All kinds of science and engineering with humanity should be properly lined up and integrated and optimized to make these process to come into the existing infrastructure to support the global goal towards sustainability. So with this, I would like to thank my students whose work I have presented here. Without them, I am not able to speak with you regarding this one. And I would like to acknowledge the funding which I got from Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, and as well as CSIR and Ministry of New and Renewable Energy for carrying out the research. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Hello everyone, it's Sumitra again. I would like to express thanks to Dr. S. Venkat Mohan sir for delivering such an informative and interesting session. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and being a part of this webinar. Thank you very much, sir. Your session was full of passion and zeal, and your words of wisdom will echo in our minds for a very long time to come, sir. Thank you very much, and we would look forward to have you in our future events, sir. Thank you very much. And I would add to this by saying your session was priceless, sir, and it's a great, great honor for all of us to have listened to you on this day. Thank you very much, sir.